For such is our folly that, sacrificing all our days, live to ideas of the future, being to a falsehood, our security to an idea of future security, we make war, wanting peace, but not knowing how to want it. These geographical frontiers, bristling with arms, serve no doubt the material interests of powerful minorities. But these powers can never compel me to reproduce these traces in my heart and in my thought, and will not silence me and gag those who today hear me, and will not silence them and be defeated. Before we come to the page, before the first word is ever written down or read or listened to, there is a longing to connect. My name is Charlie Merhoff, your host here at Before the Page, a podcast featuring poetry, parable, fiction, and words to echo our longing. Welcome, you are most welcome. On this episode of Before the Page, we are going to feature the words of the beloved writer Carlo Suarès. Suarès was born in 1892 in Alexandria, Egypt, into a renowned Sephardic family, rumored to have fled the Spanish Inquisition centuries before. Suarès was a seeker. He was also a renowned artist who attempted to embrace the source of light via strokes of color. And he was a writer, deliberate and potent with words. Suarès was close friends with Judas Krishnamurti, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, Lawrence Durrell, and the poet Humphrey Noyes. He also practiced Kabbalah. His methods can be likened somewhat to Abraham Abulafia, working with the letter energies of the Hebrew alphabet rather than the more typical approach of navigating the Sephardic tree. Yet Suarez's many gifts to the tradition have yet to be embraced by more conventional circles. His work did inspire explorations within quantum physics, but that's another story. You are hereby referred to Fred Allen Wolfe and Jack Sarfati. Among Carlo Suarez's numerous published works and translations are titles such as Genesis Rejuvenated, Krishnamurti and the Unity of Man, the Cipher of Genesis, the Second Coming of Reb Yehoshua, the Resurrection of the Word, the Chromatic Hyperbola, the Passion of Judas. Suarez's versions of the Song of Songs, as well as the Sepher Yetsira, stand apart from all others. After the Suez Crisis of 1956, Carlo and his wife Nadine found themselves dispossessed and expelled from Egypt. They resettled in Paris, where Carlo had studied architecture as a young man. He died in Paris in 1976. Let's get into it with the 8 propositions. These come from Carlo's book, The Second Coming of Reb Yehoshua. He wrote that these 8 propositions would be simple to understand, but so difficult to live. 1. Seek your total individuality. Don't write it down anywhere. Don't give it a name. Any definition of yourself is a deceptive hideout. 2. You will not find your total individuality. It is your total individuality that sees you, that witnesses your doings. It acts in our space-time continuum, but it is not restricted to it. 3. Your total individuality is your soul. It abides in the indeterminate plurality of the universe. Because it is alive, it is evolving. Because it is outside of time, its evolution is only the time that you need to permit it to find you. Because it is multidimensional, it contributes to the composition of an ecclesia. It is one and innumerable. 4. Your soul will not find you as long as your consciousness is made of the stuff of false evidences created by your mind. As long as you do not feel a sense of suffocation in those space-time false evidences. 5. The death of false evidences is a psychological death, a announcer of resurrection. Each false evidence denounced opens a window in the inner space where the measurable dies. 6. This death of the measurable in the inner space is a personal experience. All that is said to you about it will prevent it from occurring. Do not listen to the professionals of any religions. 7. Beyond this death, our infinitely multiple individuality reveals to our present person that we are only one of its multifarious manifestations. We then meet the other manifestations of our soul, spread out through history, still present and alive. 8. So this consciousness emanating from our soul integrates its earthly past and also its future. It knows itself continuous, without limits. It is all consciousness. It penetrates every consciousness. It understands every consciousness, and that understanding is love. This next piece is an essay. Carlo composed it on May 12th, 1954. May 12th is his birthday on the Gregorian calendar. He was 62 years old when he wrote this. Did most of his writing in French. The title was Quoi Israel? What Israel? A question. Here we go. I would like to show that the words State of Israel do not make sense, because a state as constituted in the heart of a country, a nation, a people, a state such as that, it expresses itself as the will of power and sovereignty of any minority in power. A state like all modern states, fruits poisoned by money interests, perpetual sources of conflict and war, is incompatible with Israel, as it will never be a constituted thing, never the personification of sensory, temporal, and idolatrous values, never nothing if it is not granted to the Lord to affirm his one and only sovereignty. And I would like to show it, not to demonstrate it. There is, in this incompatibility, evidence at once in a destiny, a real fact, and a goal. No state is viable, and it has been necessary for Jews to demonstrate it by creating, as a child, among all the non-viable states, the least viable state of all, the most absurd, the most locked up in unjustifiable borders, the most dependent on sums of money begged. I do not speak of lands or houses, nor trees, nor fruits, nor work, nor tools of work. I speak of the state and designate this modern idol and accuse this modern Moloch that kills. The struggle of the states, all the modern states, from the giants to the dwarves, against the Lord, against the sovereignty of the uncreated, of life as none of us can conceive, the states, so-called sovereigns who, bursting with fear of each other, commit suicide under the weight of their armaments. This fight divides men against the only value that is, the divine and human unity. The outcome is not to be demonstrated. Everyone sees that it is Babel, that it is the fire of Sodom and Gomorrah. Jehovah will conquer, and it will be too bad. It was necessary for our false civilizations, suffering from generalized sepsis, to give the spectacle of experts, statesmen, generals, a learned and respected multitude, drawing on the world map tens of thousands of kilometers of borders in the aftermath of a world war and tens of thousands of kilometers after another world war. Fabricating so-called states, cutting Germany in two, Berlin in four, Korea in two, Indochina in two, Jerusalem in three, India in one India and two Pakistans, the Arabs in 8 declared slits, and I do not know how many other secrets, so that Jews in haste inoculate this disease. It was necessary for the strongest states to reveal their weakness so that the weaker states could resort to force. False values had to be proclaimed true under the global rule of the police, and people were fooled by the granting of a simulacrum of sovereignty so that Jews in tow were enthusiastic about words without content and go astray. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel, to Ramah. And they said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." Sovereign king, sovereign prince, sovereign people, sovereign parliament, sovereign dictator, sovereign bourgeoisie, sovereign proletariat, sovereign policy, sovereign money, sovereign hatred, sovereign machine gun, sovereign bomb. Choose your sovereign. You are free. Listen to the voice of the people and all they say to you. Terrible words, terrible freedom, horrible and bloody rejection of the Lord. These are the modern states. Here is the state that usurps the name of Israel, similar to the others, but more erroneous still, more immediately condemned to be only contradiction because of its usurpation. By what right does he name himself? Israel is not that. Israel is not here. Israel is a name. This is the name which the angel of Yahweh bestowed on Jacob, the son of Isaac, Abraham's son, following the famous mythical battle that only the few men who are in its place understand. And this blessing is neither a refuge, nor a certainty, nor a safety, nor a haven, nor a warmth, nor a carnal consolation, nor a promise, nor a promised land, nor a rest, nor a balm, but an open wound in the flesh of those on whom Jehovah throws himself to kill them when he cannot kill them. I know they have suffered too much. these new Israelis. This is the explanation of their behavior, but not the justification for extending this behavior. I know many of them will rise up to shout, "And from what heart do you dare to speak thus, you who have not suffered?" I ask them to forgive me and listen to me, because during all the long duration of their impossible agony with insane torturers, I, Suarès, and my father before me, and his father, and the father of his father, for several centuries, we have lived in our peaceful house at Ishmael, my brother, in Egypt. And it is from Egypt, from a quiet suburb of Alexandria, where the jasmine of my garden embellishes the summer nights, that I must make an appeal, an urgent cry, because terrible are the circumstances that provoke it, to the Jews of the whole world, to the Jews of all continents, for you to blow these frontiers right away today. I say, break these frontiers now, right now, at this very moment, and let no one dare to shrug that order. Abraham has no boundaries, neither the prophet Jesus nor the prophet Muhammad, and what are you doing? Because to trace these stupid lines on the surface of the earth and to slaughter each other on these stupid lines, it is quite obvious that we must have lost all contact with the timeless. Blessed be it in its creative power, but we must have enclosed, circumscribed in these same frontiers our uncircumscribed hearts and minds. We must have been subdued by the pompous assertions of leaders. I mean temporal exploiters, assertions entirely based on contradictions such as, if you want peace, prepare for war, opposing means to ends, as if it were said that for it is necessary to go down each day a little more, in the extravagant hope that this descent, which is accentuated, which makes a snowball, which becomes an avalanche towards the depths of the abyss that could, one day, by juggling its own future, land at the top of humanity. For such is our folly that, sacrificing all our days lived to ideas of the future, being to a falsehood our security to an idea of future security, we make war, wanting peace, but not knowing how to want it. These geographical frontiers, bristling with arms, serve no doubt the material interests of powerful minorities. But these powers can never compel me to reproduce these traces in my heart and in my thought, and will not silence me and gag those who today hear me, and will not silence them and be defeated. I want an African France, and without any borders within African France, and without borders with Egypt and Sudan, and I want an Arab world without any borders within the Arab world, and without borders with all the regions of the world that would have no borders. And let the peace of Abraham be established. Let no one shrug their shoulders by invoking exchange control. A building called the Pentagon, or the enemy on the other side of the border. I have seen in Egypt how some new and clean men have landed or embarked, decrepit and obese individuals who proliferated in the entrenchments of a state, and I see every day how this salutary revolution hesitates and recedes before the formation, the manufacture of a new state. These men, because they are young and fresh, see what their elders no longer see, that unity is essential and impossible to reach by the means tried so far. Byzantium, then St. Petersburg, and today Moscow proclaims the primacy of temporal power over the spiritual. Christian Rome, then Paris, London and Washington more and more hypocritically proclaim the primacy of a spirituality that changes its name each season. Let a new state take root in the soil poisoned by false values, and the revolution will be deprived of sap. I see these young and fresh men struggling under the blows of brutal powers that surround them from all sides, stumble in the pitfalls of false democracies, false liberties, false civilizations of the West or the East. I hear them invoking the spirit of the prophets from Abraham to Muhammad, calling for help to awaken even the echo of that voice that fell silent. I see in this consecrated cradle at Egypt the possibility, the will, the necessity of a new birth, of a civilization from which the Lord would not be rejected. And at the same time, in the face of this coolness that is searching for itself, what does the eldest Israel answer to his brother Ishmael? What does he bring back from his millennial journeys? What wisdom, what love, what understanding, what intelligence, what sum, what rejection, what perception of reality, what opening to the uncreated, blessed in his creations. Because they have suffered. These Israelis are lying in the bed, contaminated by the most absurd, the most impossible, the most inhuman problems under their human appearance, the most dangerous. The causes of the enmity that Ishmael has given them are numerous. Some of them are, of course, as unjust as all the enmities between men are unjust. But I know one to hear it daily, and that I know one, it directly invades the awareness that I have of my responsibility in this frightful conjuncture where the fate of humanity is played out. This is the deception of Ishmael, the anger of a bleeding heart. What? Where is the Torah? Where is Israel? But where is Israel? Carlo Suarès, Alexandria, Egypt, May 12th, 1954. Again, great gratitude for you for listening to this episode of Before the Page. If you wish to connect with Before the Page, the email here is beforethepage@gmail. 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 Be blessed.